Well, what about you, Josh? Where are you in your whole nationality process then?
So moving on, it's a sunny day here in Paris and I'm with my friend Dakshan. I met him at this event and I'm really glad to have known him since then. This guy is quite the Chupa Rustam, in my opinion. This guy was coming to watch a YouTube video that I made about getting the nationality, the French nationality, the preparation and everything, this video right over here. And this guy already has it for 4 years now.
Yep.
I was not even giving that much value to his encouragement. And then he's like, yeah, but back when I got the nationality, I was like, wait, what? You got the nationality.
Been there, done that.
And I've been really interested in asking Dakshan these questions, and that's going to be the objective of today's video. Dakshan, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Right. Hey guys, my name is Dakshan. I'm originally from Chennai in India. Came to France in 2016, so it's been almost 9 years now. I came to do my master's at ESSEC Business School. And once I did that, I started working here and decided to stay. And yeah, I got my French nationality in 2021.
When did you arrive at France?
2016.
Oh damn, that's when I arrived.
Yeah. Literally got here at the same time. Same flight.
2016 and 2021, you got it super efficient, man.
Yeah.
So, did you always know, like when 2016, when you were coming, that you're going to ask for the nationality? Was that always part of the plan, or?
No. Back in 2016, when I got here, it was just all about figuring out what I was going to do, and at the moment, kind of go with the flow. And the nationality wasn't on my mind at all. I knew, I did kind of have an idea that this was a possibility, but it was really the furthest thing from my mind at that point.
Oh, nice. And at what point did you feel that it's like, let's do it?
It was probably after I got my first full-time job, CDE. At that point, I figured, okay, now I'm really going to stay here in France.
2019, end of 2019, perhaps.
I got the job offer in early 2019, and I started working at the end of 2019. So as soon as I got the offer, I figured, okay, now I know that I'm going to stay here, so I might as well start working towards this nationality thing, because I knew at that point it made a lot of sense for me to get it.
And you applied immediately?
No. It took me a while. I had to prepare the documents and to really prepare my file, the dossier, and it's only once after all that was done that I sent my application.
Okay. I've got a bunch of questions right there. Yeah. How long did it take you to collect all the documents? Because this is like a kilogram of documents, right?
Yeah, it was literally a kilogram of documents. I think, Josh, you can put up a picture of my file over here. I took a picture for good memories. But I think the preparation phase was maybe the longest of this whole process, because coming from India, where documents aren't exactly super accessible, especially some older documents like birth certificates and birth certificates of my parents, etc. These are things that aren't necessarily obtainable very easily.
Did you have them for your parents?
No.
That's what I'm stuck. What did you do?
Yeah, so this was, I would say that like in this whole process, my parents probably struggled more than I did. Like, they had to deal with the hardest part. They had to essentially go to a judge, so to the local courts, and essentially prove that they were born in the place where they were born, and get witnesses, which is quite hard for someone who's. My parents are 60 plus, so for them to find witnesses who witnessed their birth would be quite a tall ask. But like they figured it out, and it took about 6 months or so, but they managed to get both their birth certificates.
And how did they get it? Like it was a stamp paper with a notary sign, or?
No, so it was a legit birth certificate. There is a process to get it done in India. I don't have all the details, but like it is possible. So it's really something where if you're in this situation, the best thing would be to approach the municipality of the place where your parents were born.
Chennai, na?
No. And that was another tricky part. Like I grew up in Chennai, but my parents they grew up in Kerala. They were born and brought up over there. My mom was brought up in Calicut, and my dad in Vaikom, near Kottayam.
So they had to go there, talk to the municipality office, get a legit birth certificate.
Exactly, yeah. So they had to go through this whole legal process to get it done. And it's a whole process in India. First, you have to get a document that says that they don't have a birth certificate, and use that document to then apply for a birth certificate. And also a marriage certificate, because funnily enough, my parents weren't legally married on paper until I asked for my nationality, because back then when they got married, just a religious ceremony was considered official and legal. So there was no real need for a marriage certificate.
So that was done like now?
That was done in 2021, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's
and
when...
that works?
Yeah, it works. It works.
Okay, like the marriage date then would be 2021, right?
No. So this was again like they essentially filed for a paper saying that they were legally married through the religious ceremony as per the law. And
Back
now
on
they're-
that old date, and
yeah,
and they
now-
backdated and everything.
They backdated it, and now they officially applied for a marriage certificate. So the date of the creation of the marriage certificate was in 2021, but the marriage was in 87. Yeah.
Wow. After you had applied, how long did it take for them to come back with a positive response that everything is done, like the whole lead time?
I applied back in December of 2020, and once I sent my documents, in this whole document preparation phase, I just made sure that it had literally every document that had my name on it or my parents' name on it, and just so that even if it's documents that you don't really need, like for example, driver's license or your carte vitale, and or like your grades from university, etc. Things that they really don't care about, and
Put them in?
I put everything in just so that I would rather that they give back a bunch of files, a bunch of documents that they didn't ask for, rather than come back to me later asking for something that was missing. So I
It
was
was
just
by
kind
the
of
post then?
Sorry?
You sent it by post?
It was by post back
okay.
then, yeah. And right now everything is online as far as I understand. And so back then everything was on post. So you had to send a big dossier by mail and send it to them.
You also send documents from your parents that they did not ask for, or just yours, like driver's license and everything?
No, for my parents it was just their passports, their certificates, marriage
mandatory ones.
and birth. And that was enough.
So December 2020, and like in a year you got it?
Yeah, so that was also a bit tricky because when I applied in Lille because that's where I
Okay.
was working at that point, and Lille was not much slower than Paris, for example. Because,
really?
Yeah, because the way it works in France is that each department has their own office for naturalization.
Prefecture?
Yeah, dealing with the files concerning that department, people applying from that department. And the thing is, in Paris it's its own department, and it's a much smaller place compared to some of these other ones where it covers like much larger geography.
Okay.
So, and also generally in Paris they have more people working on this department than other places.
So it's quicker now?
It's quicker in Paris than in other places. Like for example, in places like Nice, where there are a lot of foreigners applying for nationality, it can take up to 2 years before you even hear back for an interview.
And when you say Paris, you mean 75?
I mean 75, yeah, literally the Paris city,
Okay.
Intramuros. And so because of this, I applied in Lille. It took about 3 months for them to acknowledge receiving my file. And so you have each of these steps, and each one takes, every step takes multiple months. So the first step was for them to acknowledge that they received your file. And this is the first green flag where it means that, okay, like it seems like everything that they need is there in the file.
They did not ask you for a complément dossier?
No.
Wow, lucky
So yeah, that's why I anticipated everything, made sure my dossier was bulletproof, and that they literally couldn't ask for anything more. Like I would be shocked if they asked for anything more. And at that point, I sent everything. So luckily, I didn't receive a demande de complément. And at that point, I'd moved to Paris, like right after receiving this. And because of this, I also had to move my dossier from Lille to Paris. So this is a request that you have to send to the prefecture, saying that, okay, look, I'm moving to Paris, and so now my file has to move to Paris at this point. And so because of this, that took another maybe month or 2 months. I also had to change my address on my visa. And so with all this, they moved my file to Paris. And so it might have added a couple of months in the beginning, but in the long term, it actually made everything much, much faster.
Okay.
Because at that point, the average time to get your interview, which is the most important step in the whole process, was about 2 years in Lille.
Wow.
And in Paris, once my dossier was moved over there, I got my interview call in 2 months.
Fancy.
Yeah, so it's like something like a 90% decrease in the amount of time that I had to wait.
And this is the culture interview thing, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And you were prepared by then? Like
I was over-prepared.
You were over-prepared?
I was over-prepared because this might have come from doing exams in India where you have to really prepare on another level. But I dealt with it like an exam. And my girlfriend, who's French, she helped me prepare as a French person. And she was extra strict. I think way stricter than any prefecture agent, so she didn't give me any chance. So because of this, I was extremely prepared, and because of this, the interview went very, very smoothly.
Livret de citoyen then?
Yeah.
That was the preparation?
Exactly. So Livret de Citoyen is like your Bible for this preparation, and you need to kind of use it as the center of your whole whole thing. You can go outside of it with some things, because here in the Livret de Citoyen, you have the things like structure of government, basic French history, basic history about the European Union, etc. But there are some things that are, a lot of things that are outside in this during the interview. Like, for example, who's the current Prime Minister of France? Something that can change very often, as it did over the past years in France.
Yeah, last year was...
And so it's better to just look it up a few days before your interview, because it could have changed in the meantime.
By any chance, do you have the questions they asked you?
I do, yeah.
You do?
I noted them down because one of the best things that helped me prepare for this interview and the whole process was these Facebook groups for applying for French nationality. So it's really all the different foreigners, both French-speaking and English-speaking, who applied for this and write about their experiences and about what they submitted, any issues that they might have encountered, how they dealt with it, or if they weren't able to deal with it, etc. And this was a goldmine of information, because almost any conceivable situation that you have while preparing your dossier, someone's already been through that. So being able to consult that and learn from that is invaluable. And it really makes the process much more understandable, because they don't make it easy in that sense, where you have to look up information, and the amount of information that is provided by the Service Public or like the French government is quite minimal.
Yeah.
It's just the bare essentials, but like really when it comes to these intricacies and these different details when it comes to preparing for this thing, it's having the experience from other people is super useful.
Got it.
And so I think that's the one thing that I would definitely recommend to anyone who is thinking of applying, is to join all these Facebook groups, learn as much as you can from other people, and also once you go through the experience yourself, to share this information with other people, because what you receive, you should also give it back.
Did you do your X though?
I did. That's why I noted down the questions, because I wanted to kind of share with people what questions I got during the interview. And
what was the trickiest one for you from the questions?
The trickiest one was, it wasn't tricky in that sense, but the question was, pourquoi voulez-vous devenir français? And this is, why do you want to become French? And this seems like a straightforward question, but it's a very personal question, because everyone has their own answer. There's no right answer, but there's a lot of wrong answers. So you should know why you're motivated to become French. And an example of a wrong answer would be something like, oh, I want the French passport so that I can travel easier. I don't like queuing at the airport in the foreigner line, so like I want to get in the European line.
Sécurité sociale, chômage.
Sécurité sociale, chômage. These are all like wrong reasons to want to become French. These are obviously rights that are given to French citizens, but they shouldn't be your key motivations to want to become French. And so because of this, like you need to like kind of like reflect on this question, because it's a very important one. It's the first one that they ask you during your interview, and
it sets the tone.
Yeah, it sets the tone for the whole thing, and it really shows to the agent who is dealing with your dossier why you want to become French, whether you're legit or you're someone who's just trying to take advantage of this system. Because in the end, like when you get naturalized, it's a privilege. It's a privilege offered to you by the French government. You have absolutely no rights to nationality. You ask for it, and they give it to you as after studying your dossier and seeing that it's something that they would like to confer upon you, as opposed to, for example, being born to a French parent or to being married to a French person. At that point, it becomes more of a right, and you can ask for it after a certain period. But naturalization is a privilege.
No right.
Yeah, it's a favor.
100%. Yeah, I feel you. That's true. There's a sovereign land who decides whether or not.
Exactly.
And they decide yes or no, and it can't be a wrong decision. It's their decision.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel you. What advice would you give someone who's seeking out the French nationality?
So one, I think get your priorities right. So like set up your life in France. I think integration is maybe one of the key factors behind getting this nationality successfully. So things like learning to speak French, it's really absolutely basic. So you should get to a B2 level to be safe, because there are rumors of them demanding, asking for a higher French level.
It's getting hard, right?
It's getting harder.
No, it's like confirmed. January 2026.
Okay, yeah, so it's confirmed.
Yeah.
So it's getting harder. It was B1 back in the day, but I was already at a B2, C1 level, so I was quite comfortable at that point. So yeah, like learn French to a good level. Get integrated professionally. So have a stable job or a stable income over multiple years. file your taxes
On time.
On time. Don't have a criminal record. Like, and when I say criminal, it sounds serious, but even things like running red lights in traffic and you get a ticket for it can be a big red flag in your dossier. So watch out for that. Like
Exemplaire, quoi.
Exemplar. Like you really need to have a very clean file to get this. Because again, remember that you're asking for a favor, and it's not a right. So
Right.
you don't have a right to it, and so that's why you need to have a dossier that's very clean in that sense.
From the list that you just mentioned, I think the most challenging one is really nailing the language, because the whole exchange is going to happen in the French language,
Yeah.
and if you can't seem to understand what you're saying or flow out your thought process in like a fluid discourse, that really puts a big stopper on the whole exchange.
Exactly.
What did you do to nail how did you do it? Like, because you came here in 2016, I came here in 2016, I had to, put a lot of my life things on pause in order to nail the French thing. You know, it was a big sacrifice for me, and I'm very grateful, and I'm glad that the output came out for me. But I'm curious, because I've heard you speak French, and if you have like a B2 C1 for your nationality and then they accepted it, you speak the language really well. So what did you do?
It wasn't really one thing that I did. When I came to France, I didn't speak a word of French.
Damn, in 2016?
Yeah, in 2016.
My man.
Oh, yeah, so I didn't speak a word of French apart from the basic bonjour, ça va, where's the toilet, etc. Things like that, like things that like will get you maybe 3 seconds into a conversation with a French person. So at that point, like you could basically consider that I was zero in French. But luckily in ESSEC they had French courses that were mandatory.
It helped you?
I had to take 2 levels that were mandatory, and at that point, of course, it gets you to from, let's say, a 0 to a 1 on 10, which is still not a lot. But I was really motivated to learn even more, so I decided that even though it wasn't mandatory for me to get my degree from ESSEC, I wanted to take every level of French class that they had.
So you started from A1, A2?
I started from A1, A2 and went up till like something that I would consider maybe B2 at this point, B2 or like early C1.
Where were you doing this? Like with Alliance Française or?
No, at ESSEC. So you have language classes. You can also take other languages like Spanish, English even, German, Japanese, etc. But I wanted to take French since I was here. And
you said that got you to like a 1 or a 10. And then what did you do on the side to improve your French?
No, so the mandatory courses got me to a 1 on 10, and with the other courses, it got me to maybe a 3 or 4 on 10.
Okay.
And then after that, I moved to Cité Universitaire, which is like a student residence in Paris. And over there were a lot of people who didn't really speak English that well. And so getting out of this like very like English Anglophone international environment to one that's more Francophone also helped.
Immersion.
Immersion, exactly. So like really getting into these environments where you might not understand everything, it's very uncomfortable, but then eventually you get it. That was one thing that helped. Also, of course, French music, French movies, and trying to like read more articles in French. Even though you don't understand everything, it's still like just kind of getting it into your head.
So socially for you, your friend circle like actually changed from hanging out with expats and English speakers to hanging out with more French-speaking people.
Exactly, yeah. That immersion part helped for sure.
Was it a conscious choice for you, or it's just because you went to university and that's it? Or was it a conscious choice for you on a
It was kind of both, right? Like, so of course, like I did want to get a little bit out of that comfort zone to be able to pick it up faster, because it's very easy to just like stay in your comfort zone in that circle of English-speaking people. I know many people who stayed here for like 5+ years and they don't speak a word of French because they were just able to like get away with it. And you can, like, of course, like you can live a fairly comfortable life, especially living in a big city like Paris, not speaking French. But when you do speak French, that honestly unlocks like really 90% of this experience of living in Paris and in France.
For sure.
And when it comes to immersion, the part that I think was like really the most brutal, but like the one that maybe made me learn the most, was when I joined my first job. Most of my colleagues were Francophone only. They did not like speaking in English.
Damn.
And especially like there was a one point where I was in a sales team working in the field in Paris. Mm-hmm. At that point, I work in the alcohol industry, so I had to go to different bars and like to sell them our products. And at that point, like bartenders, they wouldn't speak a word of English, especially when they're dealing with business. So at that point, I had to learn to sell and negotiate in French. and that was really like trial by fire. And honestly, it was one of the most brutal experiences of my life when it comes to like learning French, of course. But honestly, like
you felt incapable when you're going to do your job because the French was too French.
It was too French, and but honestly, like by the end of that month and a half, honestly, I came out like I think my level jumped from B2 to C1 solid, like within like that 1 month period.
That is solid, man.
It's crazy, and so like I think that immersion like part is the one that like really makes the biggest difference, and it's very uncomfortable. It's not pleasant at all. You're really outside your comfort zone, but at that point, like that's what you need. Like if you're really like motivated to learn, and I was super motivated at that point.
So if I'm summarizing that, it was the mandatory classes and then the extra classes at ESSEC.
Yeah.
Then it was listening to a lot of French music and watching movies, although you don't understand everything. Hanging out immersion-wise with French-speaking people at Cité Universitaire.
Yes.
And this choice to Cité Universitaire, it was because of French or it was a byproduct of having moved there?
No, I just wanted to move. I was staying in a suburb in about 30, 40 kilometers from Paris, and I wanted the real Paris experience.
And it was cheap for a student.
Yeah, for a student it was very affordable.
That's the reason actually. And then the French was a byproduct of it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. I think I put in a little more intention than you on that.
For sure.
And then I think this is like the most valuable takeaway I would have from the whole thing is the professional immersion thing. Because if you get away with a global English-speaking job, then it's just never going to promote. But the fact that you got into this French, a job that requires you to speak French, and hitting the stone wall every day for what, 1.5 months you said?
Oh, even more. 1.5 months was just the intense part of it, but like apart from that, like just for about 4 years, to be honest. Like I was in that company for 4 years. So the first year and a half, 2 years were the Stonewall period.
Oh wow!
And
that's the most valuable takeaway then, for me at least. For someone who wants to learn French, like if we are giving them a piece of advice, it would be that, like baptism by fire, immersion into the professional world. They are not joking over there.
Yeah.
If you're able to do this by taking a Stonewall over and over again. I did this in a sandwich bar. I couldn't really understand what people were saying, and I felt like a guy who looks like an adult, who seems so rational in his English discourse, cannot be spoken to and cannot be understood. You know, that hits hard.
Totally get it, and honestly, like you will come across as like foolish
stupid.
Or like incompetent or stupid, etc. And it's fine. Like honestly, you got to think about it in the sense that think about the number of people who actually take a leap this big about going to a completely foreign country in terms of culture, language, etc. And you make that effort to like really learn the language and to immerse yourself and to make an effort to integrate and stuff. So very, very few people are even capable of doing that. So you should give yourself credit to actually even be able to do that. So when you go through that kind of like difficult period, it's just tell yourself that you're doing something that's incredibly difficult, courageous, etc. I talk to a lot of French people and they say that they've learned English all their life, but their English isn't as good as my French. And they're shocked when I say that, like I didn't speak a word of French when I came here in 2016.
And I think this is one of the biggest benefits you can have after learning the language. They automatically think that you're some kind of a genius.
Yeah.
When it just took persistence to learn this language.
Yeah.
And then they just look at you as this blue-eyed boy who's like super capable because you did it so well.
Yeah, anyone can do it, to be honest. It's just, you just have to be motivated. You have to stick through the difficult periods, because there will be a lot of them. And it's not easy at all, but you just got to stick through it and not give up.
Man, I really have so many more questions to ask you, but I think this is getting to be a long interview. I think the social life and the integration/immersion part, I would really love to catch up and ask you these questions again, because I think this is something that people would struggle with after having figured out their school in France and getting their job things sorted. This is what they would feel fish out of water, because everything is new.
Yeah.
There's no benefits from family and stuff. I'd love to do that sometime. Do you remember Vamshi?
No.
Vamshidar, this guy he was at the same party where we met.
Yeah. Okay.
He was there, and also in my birthday thing last year.
Yeah. Okay.
Vamshi, this guy went to work on a farm, dude, to improve his French.
Yeah. You did too, right?
I did too, yeah. And I was telling him about this, bro, this farm thing is really going to work for you. It's like this professional, because you're working with them and you need to really respond to their French on a daily. He went to work there for first a month and then finally 2 months, I think, or 3 months totally. And he came back with his French being flawless and stuff. And I was like, damn, this guy actually, because who quits their job to go work on a farm to learn French? And this guy did it. The French is really the most important puzzle piece, apart from getting a nice job and having a good stable income, your taxes declared on time, not being a criminal. Then
Don't be a criminal.
Don't be a criminal. The most important thing is the French thing.
So what about you, Josh? Where are you in your whole nationality process then?
So moving on, I don't know, when I met Dakshan actually back in the day, was it 2023 or 2022?
3, I think.
23, January of 2023, when I met Dakshan for the first time, I was celebrating that I'm preparing for the French nationality exam.
2 years later.
I made a whole video and the whole thing. I've had a really rocky ride last year. And my papers have been, they asked for the complément dossier at one point. I responded to them and they asked for a complément dossier second time, the same thing. And I did respond to them again and they just kept, then it became like a stalemate situation. I was like, I can't do this perpetually. And I'm going to have to do the dossier from scratch again. And I'm going to, a good friend of mine and a lawyer that I was consulting pointed out that I should move to Paris for this. I'm living in Clichy. It's like 200 meters from Paris, in fact. Like, move to Paris. The prefecture is much quicker than Nanterre Université. Nanterre Prefecture, sorry. So I'm moving to Paris. I'm looking for an apartment now. And once I move, I think I will, apply again and see where that goes. I have to do the exam again because my last exam was B1. And in the complément dossier, they said B1, but also it's a really old one. So can you do the B1 again? So I got to do the exam now. And then do this nationality thing, move to Paris thing, sorry. And then I will ask for it. That's really where I'm at. And I'm not very amused by the fact that I've spent so much time after being prepared for the interview. Like that, when I made that video, right, I had already prepared for the interview and I was ready to go. And it's been 2 years since. So 3 even. 2-3 years since. I started shooting in October. It's been 2.5, 3 years now.
But at least you won't forget what you learned, so.
Yeah, it's really not a very pleasant reality that it takes. And it's getting so much harder. I think this is something that I can't really ask you because you're not in the process yourself right now. Now the process is so much harder. They're so much more strict about what they reject on your stuff online and about your French level, what you can show and stuff. People got by. Some of the friends that I've been asking, they just got by saying, I have an old B1 and I speak French. Let me go. And they're like, okay, fine. We'll see you in the interview. And this is not the case anymore. They're a little more demanding. They're moving it from B1 to B2, like you know. So it's getting harder by the day.
It is, There's a lot of political pressure as well to make it harder to access French nationality. And even though you can actually see it on a graph using the public data from the French government that the number of people getting nationality every year is actually going down quite significantly, there's still this perception that it's being handed out too easily, which is not the case. But because of this, they're making it harder and harder to get the nationality by increasing the French level and being even more stricter about things like criminal record and the documents, and maybe they take a little longer as well by reducing the amount of people working on these topics. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. I'm going to even seek professional help because it's getting that impossible at this point. I think I was also a little lethargic and didn't apply immediately like you did. My document list was not bulletproof like yours was. It's just what it is. I cannot do anything by regretting it now. It is just what happened. So I'm going to seek some professional help and reapply. Yeah, for sure. The main thing is not to give up. And it's a long road. It's not an easy process. But honestly, I think if anyone can get it, you can get it for sure.
Thanks, man. Thanks for taking the time, man.
Of course.